Today on the Tristen Law Show, I'm going to introduce you to a woman who has chosen a unique reason for getting into the pro wrestling ring. Her name is Becca Scott, and that's today on the Tristen Law Show. Welcome to the Tristen Law Show, where I introduce you to the personalities in and out of the pro wrestling ring. The unique part is you don't have to be a pro wrestling fan to enjoy this podcast. If it's your first time here, new episodes drop on Wednesdays, and welcome. I am your host, Tristen Law, and I hope that you're listening to this in good spirits. My goal is, by the end of this episode, you will become a fan and subscribe and grab some merch at TristenLawShow.com. That's what keeps this show going. And speaking of keeping this show going, did you know that this is the 25th episode of the Tristen Law Show? I knew I'd get this far because I pre-planned to get this far, and if not further, but I'm taking a moment to take it all in with you. You are one of the most important pieces of this journey, and I'm glad that you're here. I've got to take a minute to thank Tim Odell of Plazma Printing for the photo of Becca Scott, the guest for this episode. Tim at Plazma Printing can do a lot to serve your needs. He designs pro wrestling posters, 8x10 autographs for pro wrestlers, flyers, postcards, business cards, tickets, and more. Plazma Printing is known for their quality printing, low prices, and quick turnaround. Let Plazma Printing do the work for you. Send Plazma Printing an email now at TimothyPlazma@gmail.com and tell them that Tristen sent you. A few months back, I met today's guest, Becca Scott, at the East Coast Pro Wrestling School in New Jersey. She told me why she decided to start training, and a light bulb just went off. I have to talk to this woman to find out her full journey. Well, welcome to the full and complete idea. I'm going to talk to Becca Scott about, obviously, what made her want to get into the ring, her future with pro wrestling, and much, much more. If this doesn't turn out to be one of your favorite episodes, then, man, I don't know what to tell you. But when I'll get back, I will have Becca Scott with me. I'm Tristen Law, and this is the Tristen Law Show.
Hello to all of you Tristen Law Show podcast listeners. This is Frank Mandolini. You may not recognize this voice. I am the Italian podcaster who talks about the business side of wrestling. Yeah, I know, it's quite niche. But if you look for last minute wrestling podcast on all of your social media and wherever you get your podcast, you'll be amazed to find interviews with people such as Rob Van Dam or Matthew Gregg from Botchamania and many others, so you get to know many aspects of the wrestling business that normally you don't hear in wrestling podcasts. Because let's face it, who wants to hear another guy talk about Monday Night Raw? Yeah, me neither. So guys, go to lmwpodcast.com or search for LMW Podcast everywhere in the interweb. And remember guys, this is Frank Mandolini from the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, and you stay safe.
Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, everybody. My next guest at this time, she is so new to the pro wrestling business, she still has the plastic on her. She's in the airline industry, and let me tell you, I see big things happening for this young woman in the world of pro wrestling. I would like to introduce to you at this time, Becca Scott. Becca, welcome to the Tristen Law Show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited that you're here as well, too, because I think this is your first podcast ever.
ever.
So
I have never done this.
somebody's going to be able to Google Becca Scott and see, oh my God, let me see what this is about. But this is so cool. You know, how do you feel? You just had your first match. Like, did you even take the plastic off yet?
I honestly don't even know if it's real life yet. I'm still processing everything, and I'm still, coming down from that adrenaline rush. Pretty crazy.
We are definitely going to get into that so you don't have to worry. But like I said, my show, the Tristen Law Show, is getting behind the personalities. So we are going to get to know who you are. But before we get to all that, I did mention that you were in the airline industry. And if I'm not mistaken, you're a flight attendant. So I just want to know, how did you get into the airline industry?
I've actually been in the airline industry for almost 8 years now. I was 22 years old and in college, and I thought to myself, I wanted to travel. I'm from a tiny town in Idaho, so there wasn't much to do there. So yeah, I thought I wanted to travel. I was like, oh, I'll apply to all these airlines and I'll do it for a year or 2 years. And then I got hooked and I just wanted to travel more and more and more.
For me, I did want to be in the airline industry. I always thought it would be really cool to be a flight attendant, but seeing how planes are shaped, like me, Becca, I can't fit into the airplane bathroom. It's not because I'm wide, it's because I'm tall and I have to go in the bathroom with my head ducked down, but it's the same thing when I'm walking through the plane. So I thought, maybe they wouldn't be looking for me. And I was like, oh, well, I want to throw bags around. But no, I don't want to throw around people's bags in the elements. I want to travel the world. So I am going to live vicariously through you.
Sounds good. I think you would make a great flight attendant, for the record.
I always want to make the announcements.
It would be awesome.
Oh, man. So Becca,
that's my least favorite part.
That's my favorite part, to make the announcements. Okay, when I was a kid, right? One of the other things I wanted to do was I wanted to be a conductor for the New York City train, the subway.
Oh, yeah.
And what I would always practice doing is this is so corny. I always used to practice making the announcements on the train, because I always thought it was cool. I just love to talk, in case you couldn't tell by listening to the Tristen Law Show. Becca, being in the airline industry, you can see multiple parts of the world in one day. Like you said, you like to travel. So what I want to know, and what I'm sure everybody else wants to know, is what is your favorite city, country, or state to see?
This is such a hard question. And I feel like every person in aviation gets asked this question. There's so many different memories tied to the different places I've been. I've been to 32 countries, and I'm super proud of that number. But I think my favorite of all time, I have two favorites. One would be Edinburgh, Scotland, because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. And every time I go there, I go to the old Edinburgh area, and it's like you're in Harry Potter. You're at Hogwarts, and it's the coolest place ever. But also Tel Aviv, Israel is like paradise. And I don't know how to explain it. It's just when you're there, the weather is always great. The people are always so nice. The food is amazing. It's pretty awesome.
You had me at food. That's one of my favorite things about being a professional wrestler is traveling and eating the food. I'm not sure if you know, but Matt Lynch, I hang out with his son, Brian. I'm like his mentor to make sure, I answer like his wrestling questions and things like that. Make sure that he's all right, doing the right things, answer his questions. If I can't answer his question, I send him elsewhere. But I told him, kid, hanging out with me and traveling the road with me, I like to eat. So like if I see a Wawa, I'm pulling over. If I see a Sheetz, I'm pulling over. A Quick Check, a 7-Eleven. If I see some random burger spot, I'm pulling over. I am in it for the food. I remember one time I wrestled, one of my biggest shows, I wrestled in the baseball stadium in Coney Island. And I knew that I needed to get Nathan's hot dogs. It's not my first time eating Nathan's hot dogs, but I had to go there. So for me, it's all about the food. So in all the countries that you've been to, is America included in one of those?
I don't know if I counted that within the 32.
Right, because you eventually have to fly back.
It might be. Yeah. I mean, I guess it would be one part of I've been here.
There you go.
So I would count it.
So you've seen 32 countries, and for anybody paying attention at home, According to the United Nations, there are 195 countries on this planet. So out of the 35 countries that you've seen, Becca, which one is your least favorite?
Oof.
Bury 'em.
That's tough. I would say, I'm only saying this, and it has nothing to do with the country itself. It's because I got food poisoning there.
That's a fair enough reason.
Yeah, I was in Manchester.
Manchester.
Yeah, and I've had a couple layovers there, and every time I either get food poisoning or I'll get sick somehow or I'll like roll my ankle. It's always bad luck. So I'll say that, but it has nothing to do with the country itself. I think it's just my experiences there.
So, Becca, I'm going to give you some advice on what to do when you go to Manchester because I want it to be a positive experience for the next time that you go. So my recommendations for you is to pack a lunch and to not get off the plane at all. Just sit there. Don't go anywhere.
Just stay there. Yeah, that's good advice.
So like I said in the beginning, I always want to be a flight attendant, but another thing I always want to do was to become a pilot. The closest thing I've ever done was play Microsoft Flight Simulator because I'm too afraid to fly planes for real. So what's the scariest or the most interesting moment you've had while working on a flight?
So I'll say the scariest moment I had was when I was working a red eye from Newark to San Francisco, and we had a medical emergency. We had an elderly lady just collapse. And then it was kind of a multiple things going on. We had somebody that was up in the first class cabin who had taken sleeping medication, but then drank. So they were all wackadoo. And so we had flight attendants dealing with that situation, making sure that, everything was secure and the cockpit was safe. And then we had this she just collapsed. And so I was terrified that we weren't going to be able to save her in that moment with everything else going on. And I think that was probably one of the scariest. I used to not really like turbulence too much, but now, it's part of the job, so it doesn't really affect me as much. But anytime there's like a medical emergency or something like that, it's always crucial that hopefully somebody on the plane is a medical professional and that, nothing bad happens. I think that's the worst.
To somebody who does not know, you mentioned you were on a red eye from Newark to San Francisco. What is a red eye? We always hear it. Does it have something to do with your eyes? Do you need clear eyes? Explain it. What is it?
I would say that's probably why they call it a red eye. A red eye is when you start in one city and you fly at night and then you fly until the morning. So because the flight is so long, we're leaving here at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we're not getting to the West Coast until 6 a.m. So you're flying through the night, basically, is all it means. But yeah, it's not an easy flight. You're always kind of discombobulated and just waiting to get to the hotel so you can sleep.
You see, the reason why I love doing this show, Becca, is because I've had an aquarium enthusiast on this show. Mm-hmm. I have had a police officer on the show. I've had a YouTuber on the show. And you were officially my first flight attendant or a person in the airline industry, and you are teaching us the terminology within the airline industry. So now I feel good. So I'm going to walk up there and say, "Hey, can I get a red eye?" I don't know. I won't say that.
Yeah, you don't want to. Those flights are terrible. They're not easy to do, and even the passengers, you're trying to sleep. And do you sleep on airplanes?
Oh man, Becca, you see. Because we just befriended each other and you've never been on a plane with me, you'll understand that I usually fall asleep before the doors even shut.
Oh.
That is me. I need to have the window seat. I feel bad for the person that takes the window seat and I take the aisle seat because I'm a shoulder sleeper. Not on mine. I'll sleep on yours. And I snore. And sometimes I might even drool.
You would definitely be a good flight attendant. You've got all the qualities.
No, but I can't sleep on the job. Or do you get to sleep during a red eye?
Well, not on the red eyes, but some flights, anytime we fly out of the country, for the long flights, we get to take naps. It's called crew rest. So we have these special little bunks at the top of the plane that we climb up to and take naps.
Huh, I didn't know that. Hey, they pay you for that.
Yeah.
I just want the entire world to know, if you want to get paid to sleep on the job, go become a flight attendant. Be a flight attendant.
Yes.
So, Becca, I'm oblivious to famous people outside of their element in their normal civilian life. So, for example, I've hung out with Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC and didn't even know it was him. Yeah, so, I'm a big NSYNC fan, and I remember going to Nashville maybe about 3 years ago, and Chris Kirkpatrick lives in Nashville. And I just want to set the record right now that if anybody thinks that Nashville is only for country music, it is not. They play everything in Nashville. Don't get it twisted. I am a brother, but I love country music as well, too. All right. So I was at this club, and this guy, him and I, we're just like, just two-stepping, and we're having a great time, and we're singing, and we're drinking, and, just having a great time. And they go, hey, read us, and NSYNC is playing. So he's singing it, and I'm singing it. And then all of a sudden they go, hey, we just want to say happy birthday to Chris. Chris, get on the stage. And then I look and I go, oh, shit, it's Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC. And then he goes, hey, man, I'll be right back. And it's like, I want to get a picture with him, right? But then I thought about it. I was like, I can't take a picture with him because 5 seconds ago, to me, he was just a regular guy. So let's keep him a regular guy. So I hung out with Chris Kirkpatrick and didn't know it was him. So again, the question is, have you ever seen any pro wrestlers or celebrities while working? And what was your reaction?
I haven't seen any pro wrestlers, but I will tell you, last year I got a call from one of my coworkers saying that a few, I think it was Paige and a couple other people were traveling through Newark. And I was so excited. And I was like, why do I have to be off? But on my plane, I did have Fat Joe right before the awards. I think it was 2 years ago, and I was starstruck, and I didn't really think I would be, but I grew up listening to his music too, and so I was crazy excited. I was working in the first class cabin. Mm-hmm. He came up and was talking to us, and just making the time go by because the flight. But it was crazy. That was probably the craziest time. I've had Emma Watson on my plane, a few people, but we don't really like mess with anybody unless they come up and talk to us.
That's one of the things I learned because I used to work at Universal Orlando, and people always ask me how come I don't take a lot of pictures with celebrities or wrestlers backstage, and it's because I was trained that they're just regular people, that they're just famous because of their job. So let's not crowd them and let's give them their space. If they want to take a picture with you, they'll ask you, hey, do you want to take a picture? Do you want an autograph? But anything other than that, your job is to give them a service, and you give them a service. So I agree why you don't mess with them.
Yeah.
All right.
It was cool. It was cool to meet him.
So you're a wrestling fan, just like me. But okay. Becca, what's your earliest memory of pro wrestling as a fan?
Oh, my earliest. So I don't know if maybe I was 7 or 8. I was in that, I was a little kid. I was in that age range. And I just remember my dad and my brother were on the couch and they were watching it. And I started like getting into it. And then, it was every week they started watching it. So then pretty soon I was just there watching. And then, a little bit later we would start trying moves on each other and going from there. But then it kind of died down for a while. I didn't follow it for that long.
Who were your favorite pro wrestlers growing up?
Stone Cold Steve Austin is my favorite. Hands down, my favorite.
So what was so captivating about Stone Cold Steve Austin? Because you grew up in Idaho, right? So what was so captivating about Stone Cold Steve Austin to you, being a young Idahoan? Is that the right term?
Idahoan? Yeah, Idahoan. Okay. Yeah. Idahoan. One, because he reminded me of my dad, and two, he was always like sticking up for himself and never backing down to all the big bullies and stuff like that. He was just kind of a badass.
Stone Cold Steve Austin was one of my favorites as well too. I remember giving people the middle finger because of him. I just want to say right now, every teacher I've ever given the middle finger to in middle school, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin's fault. It was never my fault. And any teacher I ever told to suck it, I never really understood what it meant. I was just following what Triple H used to do.
All the time. I'm right there with you.
So did you ever have any like ridicule being a professional wrestling fan as a young woman? Because I knew I used to get ridiculed being a professional wrestling fan as a young male, and I still get ridiculed now.
No, when I was a fan earlier on, it was more of like a childhood thing, and I really didn't get back into it until probably I would say 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And not really any ridicule. There was one time, I was at my boyfriend's house and a few people came over and somebody had said, do you just like it because he likes it? But I mean, that kind of stuff's expected. It doesn't really bother me or anything like that.
So what was the first live event that you ever went to?
Oh, the first live event. I think it was Backlash, and I only went, and that's kind of when I started getting back into it. I went because it was Tommy's friend had tickets for his birthday, so we went to the show, and it was in Newark. We started. I actually had gone to a Holly festival the night before, and so I had green hair from all of the color and the dye.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were at the show. I remember having green hair, but I got really excited about it. It was so much fun. And then we started watching it more and more, and then going to more shows.
For me, I like in the live show aspect, the wrestling is cool, but for me, I like to see how they put on the show. Like the stage hands running around, getting things ready, watching them, flip the canvas to put on a fresh canvas and, flipping over the set. For me, I really appreciate that because that they're on a time limit. They don't have time to play around. And that's what I love going to a live show. That's pretty cool. That Backlash in Newark was your first show.
Yeah.
I remember meeting you at the East Coast Pro Wrestling School in New Jersey. Shout out to Gina Caruso. And I remember when you told me your story about how you decided to start training, and my eyes went bugged out. I said, wow, that's pretty awesome. I need to get you on the Tristen Law Show to tell everybody this awesome story. So I'm going to give you the microphone. I'm just going to lay out and just tell everyone why you started training in professional wrestling.
Okay. It's going to sound super silly, but I got the idea back, I want to say in or May, that time frame
of 2020.
Of 2020, yeah. We were all quarantined, and I think we were home for 2 months. We weren't really leaving. I live in Jersey City, so it was really locked down. 2 of my friends that I work with, we had all come up with this idea to do a quarantine challenge where every day one of us challenges somebody challenges the group to do something. And one day my challenge was, okay, everybody has to record doing your best wrestling moves and throw it together. Tommy helped me with mine, and it was so much fun. He even put Jake the Snake like audio on the background. It was awesome. I'll have to show you, but it was really fun. And it's something that we that's our thing, is pro wrestling. So I thought, okay, his birthday's coming up. I have a really good idea to surprise him. I've kind of thought that maybe it would be a great workout, and also I could see how I feel about it, and then also to surprise him by performing a wrestling match for his birthday. So I think I met you pretty early on into my training. I reached out to Gino, and he thought I was crazy, but that it was a good idea. So I started training. I trained for about almost 6 months. Tommy had no idea that I was doing this. It was like a secret life. And so for his birthday, I put it all together. I invited some of his childhood friends. I put it all together, and we did the show. And he had no idea that I was going to perform, and he's probably still in shock from it.
While everyone is working behind me to make the Tristen Law Show better, I wanted to take a quick timeout to ask you to subscribe. If you're listening in Apple Podcast, rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars and leave a review. Now, let's get back to the show. So, I remember the first time you told me that he had no idea, and I do believe it was about 6 months ago. And I made the face that I'm making now. You guys can't see my face. My face is all screwed up trying to understand. So I didn't know your name at the time. I said, what's this crazy girl talking about? And I said, so what does your boyfriend Tommy think you were doing? And you said,
I have been telling him that I go kickboxing. So I'm going to kickbox practice. And I would come home all beat up and, bruised and whiplash and concussions or whatever I had that day. And he would be like, this is killing you. Why are you still doing this? Why are you doing kickboxing? So I did tell him the truth with everything I was doing. I just changed wrestling to kickboxing just for the surprise.
All right. So you messaged Gino Caruso, good friend, mentor. I owe that guy a lot. Yeah. And he said, come down to the school. Now, let's go back in our time machine. If you don't know anything about me, my favorite movie is Back to the Future. So we're going to jump in the DeLorean. We're going to go back to that day, and you walked into the school. Give us your mind frame, your mindset. What was going on through your mind? What was your emotions?
Oh, I was terrified. I was so intimidated, and I just kept thinking, don't let these boys, these athletes, these men know that you're intimidated. Just go in there, be fierce, and just be ready. After I took that first bump, I was like, oh, this is real. This hurts. If you don't do it right, this hurts. I think my first day, I gained a lot more respect for every professional wrestler in the world, because it's definitely difficult.
So you're trying to tell me, Becca, that this is not as easy as it looks on the television? It's not as easy as they were doing at Newark and Backlash?
Definitely not as easy. This is a whole nother level of fitness in every aspect.
You see, I will tell people, and people usually don't understand, Becca, that at my peak, at my prime, when I was like 24 years old, I can go out there and I could wrestle a 25, 30-minute match like it's nothing. But if you tell me to go on the treadmill and run a mile, brother, sister, it's not happening. It's not happening. But now, like, I can get in the ring, and I can go out there and I can do a good 10, 15 minutes and I can pace myself and I'll be good. But if you want me to run on the treadmill, yeah, it's not happening. My knees hurt.
See, I was the opposite from you. I was running marathons and half marathons and doing all of that. And as soon as I got into the ring, I'm like, what is this? It's a whole different type of cardio.
And that's what we tell people all the time. And you are the prime example. I always tell people, you can run a marathon, but you'll get into a pro wrestling ring and you'll blow up in 5 seconds. It's like you said, it's a different kind of cardio, because not only, we know it's 2020, it's a show, but you got to throw yourself down, pick yourself up. And while you're doing that, you got to think. And while you're thinking, you may have to call or you have to listen to the crowd, because a lot of people don't understand. There are two ways for you to blow up, Becca. You can blow up physically and blowing up by getting out of breath. So you can blow up physically. You could also blow up mentally. I've seen people go out there and the bell rings and they're like a deer in headlights. They don't know what to do because they're blown up mentally. They don't know what to do. So what did you think pro wrestling training was going to be?
I definitely didn't know it was going to be that difficult. But I thought it was going to be a lot of like, okay, teach me how to do, these flips and all of this, all of this stuff. Teach me the ins and outs of all of the cool moves that, I see on TV. And then when you get down to it, and especially with Gino, starting from the basics and learning, there's a lot more to it. There really, really is.
But what was one of your favorite moments doing pro wrestling after all the intimidation has gone? I'm not talking about the match. We'll definitely get to the match. But in your physical training, what was one of your favorite moments?
So the first time I actually got the drop kick, I was actually able to do it. I think that was, I think I jumped up and I started, dancing and cheering. And of course, it'd be like, stop celebrating after every time you do a move. But it was so difficult for me to get my legs up to get that drop kick. So when I finally got it, I was like, yeah, like this is it. I want to do more and more and more. But that was that first burst of like excitement when I finally got something right, and it wasn't, it was more of a cool move.
So the first time I started taking you seriously was the first time we got in the ring and we did the crossbody together.
Yes.
And for me, the crossbody, and this is me personally, the crossbody is my favorite move to take from a person that is half my size. And you were perfect for me. As you can see, the show that we wrestled for Christmas Chaos, one of the biggest things that I did was I took a crossbody from Johnny Chill. I love taking a crossbody. And I was like, wow, this girl is serious, because you jumped about 6 feet plus in the air, and I snatched you out the air and took the big bump, and you popped up, you're like, yeah, I want to do it again. I said, oh shit, this girl is for real. All right, she's for real. So at that point, you got a check mark in my book for that.
All right, I will take it. Yeah, the crossbody was another big one. As soon as I got it and I was able to kind of get the footwork and stuff, I was like, yeah, this is the one I like.
On November 24th, 2018, you ran the New York City Marathon, and you have been quoted on Instagram as saying it's the hardest thing you've ever done. Compared to your professional wrestling training, which was the hardest and why?
I've actually said this to a couple people since I've begun training.
You're now saying it to the world.
This pro wrestling is now the hardest thing I've ever done. It's a completely different type of training. Training for the marathon was good, getting those miles in and making sure I'm stretching and yoga. But this is definitely the hardest thing I've ever had to do, with all of, starting out and doing moves the wrong way and trying to learn all of the footwork and taking all of the bumps and all of the neck injuries that come with them. This is definitely harder.
I agree. I put this on the same exact thing as well, too. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I've been into like different boot camps and different things like that. And pro wrestling is still the hardest thing you ever have to do, because when your body says no, you have to make your mind tell your body to go. And, the cardio is different, and you got to think, and, your body hurts and you just want to stop. And, people don't understand. They think that we're wrestling on a trampoline and on a mattress. It's nothing like that by any means. Like Becca, I'm sure that from possibly doing some research on pro wrestling, people have died in the pro wrestling ring. Like, it's serious shit getting into pro wrestling. Yeah. It's not a game. And I'm glad that you're officially in the wrestling business and you get it.
Yes.
But remember, But one of the things I didn't have this conversation with you before your first match, because you were out there working the gimmick with Tommy and everybody else. But I told this to Ashley. I said, because it was her first match, that was your opponent. Mm-hmm. I told Ashley, I said, what you're doing tonight, many people want to do it, but they can't do it. They will look at us and think that it's really easy and get in the ring and try to do it and realize it's not for them. So what you're doing tonight, it's your first match. It's really special. Just take a little bit of time to soak everything in, because, Becca, you'll never have a first match again. Mm-hmm. So welcome to the business, kid.
Thank you.
Looking back at your pro wrestling training, is there anything you do differently?
I don't know. I feel like I went in really strong and tried, I was there as much as I could be with my, with it being my secret life. And I think the way our match turned out, I'm really happy with it. I think it's going to be a good memory forever. If anything, I would have probably not been so scared for so long. After you've taken that first bump, you kind of want to shield yourself from doing it again. So I think that fear sometimes blocked off a little bit of what I could have been doing earlier on.
Good point. And it's scary to take your bump, your first fall, because your whole entire life, what are you taught? Not to fall.
Yeah, catch yourself.
Right. And now, like Becca, you're now in a elite class of people that will walk on a piece of ice and slip and take a bump. It's happened to me. Right. I've walked and I've slipped on ice and taken a bump. And everybody was like, oh my God, you all right? You know what I just did? Hey, got to work the crowd. Yeah, I just hit my head. But, it's second nature to tuck your chin and don't catch yourself. Just fall, So, yeah. Welcome to the club. So let's go back officially to your first match. It was Saturday, December 12th, 2020 in Hapakatong. I probably said that wrong. Hapakatong, New Jersey. It was in front of your friends, family, and your boyfriend, Tommy. How did you get Tommy to go to the show? Give us all of the behind the scenes.
All of the scenes. So basically what happened is I told Tommy, I got tickets to this wrestling show. I know, during quarantine, we can't really do much, but I think it'd be fun to go. Let's do this show. And so he was all for it. And we got a couple of his friends to go. I actually rented a little like passenger van to take everybody up there. We were running late, so I was really nervous, and I was kind of, everybody get in the car right now. We have to go. And he couldn't understand why, because he's like, it's a show. It's okay if we're late. We don't have to see the whole thing. But then when we get there and we're setting up, he wasn't really understanding why I was so nervous at that point. I'm like, there's no turning back, even though I kind of wish I could run and hide. But it was a lot of that whole day leading up to getting him to the show was a lot of, okay, we're on a schedule. We have to do this and then this and then this. And he was like, you're not like this normally. What's going on? Like, what's happening? So it was a lot of confusion for him, and then a lot of nerves and, anxiety for me. I think that was about all until we got there, and then things started rolling pretty quickly.
So to paint the picture for everybody listening, it was right around intermission, and the ring announcer, Matt Lynch, who's been on the Tristen Law Show, episode 17, he comes over and starts talking to you about Tommy's birthday, and then Ashley comes out from the back and she approaches you. What was going on through your mind?
Well, again, super nervous at that point because there's no turning back once you get started. So as soon as she came out, she started the conversation, and we went back and forth a little bit. And I just remember looking over at Tommy, and his face is so shocked. He's so confused because he didn't know what was happening.
Right.
So when she said something, I think she said something along the lines of, you need to respect, this is a competition, and you're here, and, you're disrespecting my passion. And so let's get in the ring, and let's, I'll teach you a lesson. I don't know what she said. I can't even remember,
something like that. It all happened in slow motion, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so I kind of froze up a little bit, and I just grabbed the mic, and I said, what do you guys think? Do you want to see a ladies match tonight? And of course, Tommy's face is still in shock. He's like, this can't be a real thing. But the lady directly in front of me, when I said that, do you guys want to see a ladies match tonight? She says, no. I did everything I could to not laugh. It was, for me in that moment, I'm like, that's pretty hysterical. But even then afterwards, that little interact, because that was my first time being in front of a crowd and performing any type of anything. I don't do that in my life. So I kind of didn't even really realize what was going on until it was over, and everybody, Gina was like, yeah, it was good, it was okay. I'm like, I have no idea what came out of my mouth because I was so nervous.
So I could understand why that lady said that no, she didn't want to see women's wrestling, because normally on the indies, you don't get good wrestling from ladies. You don't. It's few and far in between. I've had a couple of excellent female wrestlers on the show, and Becca, I'm adding you to the category. You are in the category of excellent female wrestlers, because Becca, your match was awesome. And for it being the main event and your first match, it was more than worthy of being the main event.
Oh, I wish everybody could see my happy dance right now.
What was everybody's reaction to your first match?
I think my when I got backstage after everything, after the whole table incident, I got backstage and everybody was just like, whoa, good job. And that type of like team and camaraderie, I loved that feeling so much. Just knowing that I did everything I possibly could in the ring. And when I get backstage, everybody, it's not like, oh, well, you could have done this better or this better. They were like, yeah, solid match. And that I felt so proud. And then afterwards, when I finally got to see, Tommy's reaction and what was going on, he still had that same shocked look on his face and just kept saying, I need to process this. I'm going to need time to process this. During the match, I remember there was one spot where I run up and I give Ashley a monkey flip. I flip her over my head, right? And I look over, I just happened to glance over, and he's standing up for the first time in our entire match, and his hands are above his head, and he just starts going crazy and cheering. And that, I think that was when the light switched on, and he was like, oh, this was something that she had been, preparing for. She didn't just decide to come out and do this. But just, yeah, it was such a good feeling, and it was an adrenaline rush, but it was also like, I don't even know how to explain the feeling of that night from when I first stepped out of the curtain to the very end. It was such an adrenaline rush. It was so addicting. I loved every second of it.
I told you in a message that I've never done drugs. I don't drink alcohol. And wrestling, that night was, let me tell you, if I never wrestle again, and God, I hope you give me the opportunity to wrestle again. But like, if I never wrestle again, I can say that night was an amazing night. I think that is one of the best shows I've been a part of all year. And I've been a part of some, not many shows because of COVID, but I've been a part of a lot of shows. But one of the things I told you in the message, I said, girl, it's only the start. I see so much potential between you. And when the final bell rang, I'm going to out myself. I had to try not to cry while watching at the curtain, and I didn't cry. I said to you, keep at it. Listen to what I'm going to tell you. If you want to get paid to wrestle, do it. Keep working hard and keep improving. There's a place for you in wrestling. Remain humble, and I'm sure someone will pay you top dollar to wrestle. You make a great baby face. I believed you were getting your ass kicked the entire time. That's what made Shawn Michaels so special, and in my opinion, that's why you're special.
I teared up listening or reading that the first time too.
You obviously have a spot in pro wrestling. You're not a heel. Maybe someday down the line, like for me, nobody ever lets me work babyface because they go, it's not because I'm not attractive. Hello. It's because I come out there and I genuinely don't care if anybody likes me. Like, if you want to fight me outside because of the things that I've done in the ring, I will put my bag down and we'll square up and we'll fight. I don't care. I don't care if I offend you. I don't care if I make your kid cry. I don't care. Because by the time the babyface music comes out, hits, you're just happy that they're there to kick my ass. It could be the janitor. It could be the guy from the concession stand. But for you, like you tell the stories with your face, and that's one of the most important parts of this Broadway, of this theater that we do. Being able to tell the story with your body, because the people that pay a lot of money to sit far away from you because they can't afford it, they can't hear what you're saying, but they can feel your emotion. And I felt your emotion the entire time.
I was in it. I was definitely in it. I think when I first started, I had brought the idea up to Gino that I would be a heel. And I was so set on it. I was like, nobody thinks I could do this. I could be a heel. I kept telling him, I could be a bad guy. And he, at one point, he tells me, how are you ever going to be a heel? Every time you do a move, you celebrate, or you're smiling constantly.
And you smile a lot,
smile
right?
off your face.
You smile a lot. Like for me, I don't smile. I just have a grin. And it's like, yeah, I got over it. That's the look that I have on my face. And I usually say that the persons that make the best heels are the nicest people in the world, and the people that make the best baby faces are the biggest assholes. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, Becca Scott is, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, you tell really good stories on your face. But I want to ask the real question here, and I'm sure everybody listening to this by now wants to know the answer. So I'm just going to ask you, Becca, are you actually going to take the kickboxing classes, or no? That's out the window.
That's out the window. I mean, it probably would help. It would help my skill set. I've taken one kickboxing class just to see what it was a few years ago, and that's whole nother workout in itself. But yeah, I think I'm gonna hold off on those kickboxing classes right now.
Now that you've accomplished your first wrestling match as a surprise to Tommy, right? Are you done with pro wrestling? What is next for Becca?
Oh, definitely not done. I'm eager to see what else I can learn and how, where else I can go with this. It's become a passion in its own sense, and I love doing it. So I definitely don't think it's over. And even after the match, Tommy was like, you got to keep doing this. And so I definitely think that I'm going to stick around, see what else I could come up with.
If AEW, WWE, or a big name pro wrestling company is listening, why is Becca Scott the best person to be offered a contract within their organization?
I'm quite the character, and I'll keep the locker room interesting and laughing and excited and upbeat and ready.
The reason why I think that you're a best person for the organization, minus the pro wrestling, is that after going through your Instagram, you do a lot of, God, I know I'm going to butcher the word, philanthropic. I probably said the word wrong. You do a lot of charitable things for other people with the organization that you're currently with. And I think that's great because it doesn't look like you're forced to do those charitable things. It looks like you thoroughly enjoy those things that you do. And I think that it's great to have somebody there. And from looking at one of the videos that you have on your Instagram, you speak really well. So I'm afraid that somebody may not give you the opportunity to become a wrestler. They may try to stick a microphone in your hand. But my advice to you is if they give you the opportunity to be an announcer, just to get your foot in the door. And if you could ever get the chance to be in that ring, be in that ring. That's why I think that you are the best person for any organization, because you already bring more to the table than pro wrestling. And you've only had one match. You see, for me, Becca, when I started wrestling, I remember standing in a room with Jim Cornette and a bunch of other people for Ring of Honor. And he asked me, well, what do you bring to the table besides wrestling? And you know what I said? Wrestling. Because that's all I did. Now at 35 years old, I've matured and I understand what I need to bring to the pro wrestling business, because honestly, they may not want me to wrestle. They may need me to host a podcast, host a television show. They may need me to announce. They may not want me to wrestle, and I need to be okay with that. I still get to live my dream, traveling the world on somebody's dime. So that's what I think that makes you one of the best people for the organization. Well, Becca, so you've done it. You've wrestled. You said that you're still going to continue training, but I want to give you a chance to shout everybody out that has made this all possible for you. The floor is yours. Take as much time as you want. And as they say from where I come from, do you.
Do you? Well, definitely, I think the biggest thanks goes to Mr. Caruso himself. I can't even begin to thank him for all of the time and effort he's put into training me and getting me ready for my first match. You were the first one with our video with that crossbody. Definitely Ashley. She was a very worthy first opponent, and she definitely did some work. And Tommy, I guess this was all inspired because of him, and I got to, enjoy it and continue on with it. But it all started with that little idea in my head. I think that there are a lot of people at the training center that have all taken time to help, just while they're there, and all of the questions and, hey, teach me this, teach me that. I think John Tella gave me my first body slam, and I was terrified because he's 6'2", 6'3". So thanks, John, for that.
Definitely Prince Akhenaten and Alex Raymond. I seen him working so hard on your match.
Prince has stepped in and done so much for my skill set and selling, and I've learned so much from him. He's always the first person I'll text to say, how do I do this, or what do I do with this? He's even done mine and Ashley's match with me just so I can mentally prepare myself for what was to come. He's definitely, absolutely, hands down. But yeah, I think that's about it. Mr. Trey Felipe has been a huge help and will always, tell me, hey, you need to do this a little bit better. You need to sell a little bit more. And it's just like everybody, it's kind of everybody, how they say it takes a village. It was kind of Gino's village that came in to kind of help me become what I've become so far. And I'm excited to keep going and see where this takes me. And like you said, community affairs and doing the charity work, that's my passion in life, in real life. And that has been forever. So to be able, if I could do something to put the two together, that's what I'm going to start focusing on and just go as far as I can with it. That's about it.
Sonny Kiss was also there that night. Yep, Sonny Kiss from AEW got to see you wrestle your first match.
Yes, Sunny came up to me after and hugged me and was like, "You guys did so amazing," and I couldn't believe it. I was honestly, I was like, "I watched you on TV." I couldn't believe it. It was everything. Sunny was actually there my first day of training too when I took my first back bump, and after my first one, I was like, "I don't want to do that again." I hit my head, and so Sunny like we'll crouch down and start from a lower standpoint and helped me out that way, and I was like I got a little bit little crazy with that one. I was really excited. So yeah, Sunny being there was a big honor.
Well, Becca, you are over for me, and that's the term that we use in the wrestling business. You are over. But Becca, tell everybody how to find you on social media if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, my Instagram is Rebecca. Sorry, my dogs are barking. My Instagram is Rebecca J. Scott. And then my Facebook is just Rebecca Scott. So, yeah.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Follow her on social media. You're going to be able to say that you heard this woman here first on the Tristen Law Show. Rebecca, thank you so much for the time. And ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere, because after we're done, you're going to hear my thoughts on this interview and who will be here next week on the Tristen Law Show. Hey, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. That shirt you're wearing is so not cool. Why don't you head on over to TristenLawShow.com and get yourself a new shirt? Not only will you be cool, but you'll also be supporting the show. What are you waiting for? Go now and get a hat too while you're at it. Thank me later. We're the show at TristenLawShow.com. Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, and I hope that you're having a great time. We're looking to promote your band or brand here on the Tristen Law Show. Contact the Tristen Law Show at tristenlawshow@gmail.com or tristenlawshow.com for more info. Now, I've heard a lot of people popping out of birthday cakes, having airplanes skywrite happy birthday, radio shout outs, but never a pro wrestling match as a birthday surprise. Well, that was until today. I'll tell you this. Becca was 100% devoted the entire time doing her training. And the finished product, which is the wrestling match that she had, that's the proof. This was a great story, but I want to know what you think. Reach out to me on social media at The Real Big Tris on Instagram or Twitter, or Tristen Show on Instagram or Twitter. And you already know, TristenLawShow.com is the place for all of the contact information and more. Sticking with the theme of introducing you to the personalities in and out of the pro wrestling ring, next week I'm going to introduce you to pro wrestling photographer Earl Gardner. It's going to be cool to chat with the South Jersey native, and I can't wait for you to be there. If you like this episode, I need a favor from you. Yep, I'm talking to you. Share this on your favorite social media platform, and don't forget to tag myself or the show. Don't make this be the thing that you do. Make this be the thing that we do. You can also walk up to a random stranger and tell them to listen to the Tristen Law Show. Yeah, they may think you're crazy, but who cares what other people think, right? Fine. If you're worried about being judged, go on over to TristenLawShow.com and at least buy a shirt. People will think that you're really cool. Rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, please. Reviews mean a lot. Whichever podcast platform you're using to listen, please subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. The best part is that it's free. Learn about myself and the Tristen Law Show by typing TristenLawShow.com in your internet-enabled device for more info. I'll be waiting for you next week. I'm Tristen Law, and this is the Tristen Law Show. And until next time, adios.